Family, what's good out there? Just sliding this thing one more again. Just want to see about you. Just tap in on this particular subject right here. Let's have a real conversation today about consistency. Not consistency of progress, but the consistency of suffering. Because when we look across history, we see a pattern. Both Jewish community and Black community had shared centuries of persecution at the hands of the same forces, European powers, and the European church that gave them cover. For centuries, the Jewish merchants and moneylenders financed kings, financed the expansion of the Catholic Church, and financed the daily operations of European society. They were essential. The king needed them, the church benefited from them, but what always seemed to follow? Debt. The kings and the nobles ran up massive debts. And when it came time to pay, these Germanic tribes and monarchs often flipped the script. And instead of honoring their agreements, they turned violent. They robbed Jewish merchants, expelled communities, and carried out persecution after persecution. The Jewish people who built and sustained the very financial institution Europe depended on were betrayed and scapegoated the moment it was convenient for the powerful to walk away from their debts. Parallel to the Black experience. And doesn't that sound familiar? Because in America, Black labor built the wealth of the country. Slavery, sharecropping, forced labor, and later on, the cultural industries that generated billions. Yet, when Black prosperity grew in places like Tulsa, Wilmington, Rosewood, etc., what happened? Violence, disposition, and systematic repression. So both communities, Jewish and Black, have faced the same patterns. You are good enough to build wealth for others, good enough to finance empires, but the moment you accelerate your own wealth or demand fairness, you become a target. That is the consistency that I'm talking about today, folks. Now, let's go even deeper into history. In the 7th century, the Merovingian king Chlothar II had to step in and literally threaten his own troops to stop them from plundering churches and monasteries. He told them, and I quote from the Chronicles, that he would bury his axe in their heads if they continued robbing these sacred institutions. Think about that. The king himself had to remind his men about the sacred traditions of their forefathers because greed had overtaken loyalty, because robbery had become routine, and he had to invoke violence just to preserve the sanctity of the church from his own warriors. But I think it's also important to note that this was leverage done by Kothar because he was cut a bigger deal by the church to stop his men. And this shows that the culture held nothing sacred. If there was value, they seek to plunder it. This is isolated. The same dramatic tribes, the Vandals, the Burgundians, and others played a role in bringing down the Roman Empire. They didn't just defeat Rome militarily, they disrupted the economic and the spiritual core of what Rome represented. They looted, they plundered, they hollowed out institutions from the inside. And when we track that forward, that same energy is there. Exploitation, debt without repayment, plunder of both Jewish merchants and black labor, sanctioned by the ruler and justified by church institutions. So when we talk about Jewish suffering and we talk about black suffering, we're not talking about two separate stories. We're talking about parallel lines in the same story. A story where European powers, often in partnership with their church institutions, consistently used both communities as engines of their prosperity and then turned around and punished them for it. And if we're going to be honest about where we are today, globally and in America, we've got to see these parallels because only by seeing the pattern clearly we can break the cycle. And this is what this whole conversation is about. Let's just be honest, people. It's not just history, it's the present. And it's a warning for the future. Y'all stay safe and let's continue to pray that God continue to bless America and bless us through the turmoil that we are going through and we've yet to get through. And pray that the America that we see in our mind can be possible. Deuces.